So what I'm bringing here for information, a letter that I came across. I've seen it before, but I decided I want to do a little commentary on it, break it down in my own personal understanding, or the way I understand it. Let me just use the way I understand it. So as you see, the header, it's in Greek, is Portuguese. Sorry, Portuguese. So I put a translation where you see comment. The Federal University of Commerce, the Faculty of Philosophy and Human Science, Department of History, Contemporary of Professional Text, da da da. Anyway, so all the just to break down, if certain things, you see it on the left hand side. you know, all right. So, and as you can see, there's a stamp right here to show that it was a legit letter. Okay, so letter from King Leopold II of Belgium to colonizers in 1883. 1883. I have a, it's surprising that the letter was out based in 1883, but as we know, slave trade started around 1600s. I would say go back way before then. I would say there was enslavement way before then. Maybe they start outsourcing it, the during the 16th century. Maybe that's when, but I think it was like 1560, I think it was 1650 something. But you can go all the way back to the 1500s as well. All right, so let's go with the letter. So as he wrote the letter, he said, "Reverence, Father, and dear compatriots, the task that is given to fulfill is very delicate and required much tact." As in tactic, right? You will go certainly to evangelize, but your evangelization must be inspired above all Belgium interests. As I highlighted, I want to basically, because you gotta evangelization is basically tell you that their vision, basically. They didn't want to go with good intent, basically. So you gotta emphasize and evangelize. And it's really interesting for that. Your principal objective in the mission in the Congo is never to teach the niggers to know God. And that this is also very important, right? The mission in your principal objective in our mission in the Congo is to never teach the niggers to know God. In my understanding, their God and the African gods at that time was two different things. They didn't have the same gods. Their gods was different. He wouldn't say this if they had the same God or the same understanding of the God that Leopold was worshiping, the people of Belgium was worshiping, versus the people in the African diaspora, versus the people in the western hemisphere of Africa, the western side of Africa, in the Congo, Nigeria, Benin, all those places, right? Continue. This they know already. They speak and submit to Amangu, one Nazambi, one Nazakamba, which is interesting. And on the side where you say comments, I kind of give a little breakdown, where or what these words really represent. Mango, I couldn't really find much. It just say it means God. There's some Kumba. They have different translation, but it's in the different languages for some kind of gospel type of thing. So that didn't really relate to what the native Africans was really talking about. So I don't really want to But I put a link down there if anybody wanna check it out. The only information I could really find anything on is Nazambi, and it kind of simulates to Munga, really, but it give a little brief history of what that is. So moving forward, so the gods is known as Munga, Nazambi, one Nazakumba, right? And this is supposed to be the gods of, basically the gods of the world, the gods of the creator, right? And what else do I know? What else I don't know? Basically, just saying what else they do, he don't know. They know that to kill, to sleep with someone else wife, to lie and to insult is bad. So they know they have morals. You know what I'm saying? They have morals under the understanding of life. Have courage to admit. They have courage to admit when they're wrong. You're not going to teach them what they know already. And this is the important part. Why he don't want them to teach what they know already? That only says that the people in that region or the people in that time frame of as they was trying to evangelize them, they have a good moral sense of understanding of life. They had a peaceful way of living, right? They know what it means to harm and cheat and steal and tell lies and all these different things. It's as if they're making it seem like they came from like some whole nother planet. Like they're not on the same earth. And they treat them as if like they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Like they don't, like they're some kind of animal. Let me put it like that. It's like they're comparing them to animals, basically, right? Like these humans that don't have the same skin tone as them are like literally animals. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're literally animals. That's how I see it. That's how I see it. By you saying that you're not going to teach them that they know what they know already in terms of the good things that relates to lying, stealing, cheating, hurting other people, making other people feel bad, stuff like that. So basically you're taking their good morals to teach them your bad morals, right? And that comes back to that kind of reminds me of when in Genesis when God said, "Don't eat up the fruit because you know good and evil." So it's almost of saying like the white man know what good and evil is, right? So he know if you open a real if you eat the fruit, you're gonna know what bad is and what good is. You're gonna have a knowledge of it. So you have a conscience to know what is bad or good, right? The way he talking, the way how Leopold is speaking of the African people, as if they don't have no understanding of that, right? But yet they want to teach them only how to submit to one way of living, right? They're only supposed to know how to be evil versus good. Where in the Garden of Eden, he was trying to maintain them as basically innocent, non-defiled people. Some people who never they just never did anything wrong, right? Or they won't know what is wrong or what is right. They're just living a life. This is why I relate the Bible to the same way of understanding how these people think. This is why I relate it, because it coincides to the understanding of how they want African people or black people to perceive them or to understand them. That's the way I see it. All right, continue it. Your essential role is to facilitate the tasks of administrators and industrial, which means you will go to interpret the gospel in the way it will be the best to protect your interests. I was gonna say all interests, but it's really your interest in that part of the world. And that this is really important because he's basically telling them we're gonna go into Africa. We go the goal is, or the task is, to go in there, evangelize these people, manipulate their mind from being righteous or understanding or spiritual or kind or have morals or anything like that, and teach them as if they are the gods. Teach them as if like this is the life you're supposed to live, but they have to force them to do it now because they don't live off the land or use the materials of the land, you know, to be greedy. I would say they want to go and treat these people like they just have no understanding. They're going in there to industrialize the land that these people live on, but they're going to use these people to do it. They're going to also use the gospel of the Bible to manipulate them to believing this is what they're supposed to do. That goes back to the Bible where I say, when they came into the whole slavery concept of it, it was taught to them to be that way. Right? And of that part of the world, and then when I say that part of the world, I understand it's a whole nother location. But at the same time, it's still on Earth, right? But I understand back then in them times, they considered, different land masses a whole nother world or whatever the case is. Anyway, let's keep it moving. For these things, you have to keep watch on disinteresting or savage from the richness. That is plenty. Now, this is a little confusing. He said disinteresting or savages from the riches, from the richness that is plenty. You have to keep watch on to disinterest. And that's a very important word. Disinterest. You have to keep watch on disinterest or savages from their richness. They're calling us savages. They're calling the African people savages. That's number one. When they allow them to come in and be part of their, country or their tribe or whatever it is they're doing at the time, they allow them to come in and live amongst them or be amongst them, associate with them, right? But the plan was, this is the sneaky part right here. In the colonizers' mentality, or the word that they entrust their task of goal, their task was to manipulate, be the mold, be the parasite, right? Be the cancer to sneakily take beneath their feet from these people. And then when it comes to it, it's a savage from richness, that's another key word. It's not that African people didn't know they're rich. It's not like they didn't know what they have. They just wasn't the type of people, from my understanding, and based on this letter, he basically saying that African people during the Congo times, on the western side of the Africa, or we could say the whole Africa, right, didn't, how should I say, roughly care so much about the stuff that's in the land. Even though they did use this stuff, even though they did hack this stuff, even though they did make jewelry and stuff out of these things, they just never, it's not like they never used the stuff. They used to use them. They had them. They create diamonds. They had diamonds. They had golds. They had crystals. They made rings. They did all these different things. They did it. They had these things. The issue is that they had plenty of it. And when the colonizers came in and they saw this shit, instead of them making deals with these people, they decide to take it. That's how I look at it, right? And the way how they did it was to go in with the friendly mentality, and then eventually they just turn on them, and as he said, evangelize, right? And then they use the Bible to manipulate them, because they had to come in, like I said, they had to come in like a cancer, right? They start just coming with peace, and then they start changing, and then they start changing, and as they change, they're changing the people at the same time. They're flipping them, right? Using the Bible to say, you're only supposed to be rich when you go to heaven and shit like that. In their ground. So they should not know their riches, that is plenty in their ground. To avoid that, they get interested in it. So it's also another sneaky way of saying, don't let them know that we're focusing on the gold. Don't let them know we're focusing on the materials that they have in the ground, because if we do, they might get interested in it as well. And that's another lie right there. It's not that we didn't know, or I would just say, it's not like they didn't know about the gold and the diamonds and the food, whatever it is they was looking for, metal, all of that stuff. They was using these things physically. This is why you had gold nuggets and shit just hanging around their necks. They know what it was. Life was more important to them at that time. They didn't care about, it wasn't so much about material things. It was about life. And make your to avoid that, they get interested in it and make you murderous. Competition, and dream one day to overthrow you. So they don't want the people to basically, learn of these things that they're going after, that these things mean something in the world to other people. And if they do find out that they mean something, they might end up turned around and try to be murderers, just like the colonizers that come there and turn into murderer people. And this is also another important part. You don't want it to find out to be interested in the stuff that's under the ground and make you murderers. Competition, and dream one day to overflow you. Does that mean these people was kind-hearted? Does it mean that they had that doesn't mean that they had good intentions to treat you like themselves as a human being? That's what that means. Because if you're talking about you don't want it to be murderous like you, so they can overthrow you one day, doesn't that mean they came with good intent? That don't mean they give you good they treated you with good intentions? Yeah, so doesn't that mean they teach you with good intentions? That's what it means to me. That's what it means to me. So they didn't want them to know what's under the ground, because they didn't want them to overthrow him, or to revert from thinking that these people means harm to them. And then again, they're chasing after their goal on their land, so they want them to acknowledge the stuff that they're going for. All right, moving forward. Your knowledge of the gospel will allow you to find texts ordering and encouraging your fellow words to love poverty. This is important. This is very important. This is where the Bible's. I mean, they're already acknowledging how you should use the Bible to manipulate them in the first place. They're already telling you how savagery they are to the people who's been so kind to them over materials that the people themselves that owns the material is giving it to you for free. They was giving you our gold. They was giving you as a gift. They was willing to do trade with you. But you didn't want to do that. You want to take it. But in the process of doing that, you didn't just take it. You decided to use the people who live on that land and slave them to dig up their own land so you could use them as animals or slaves, if you want to use that word, for you to get rich off of them. And to prove, to show that how they use the Bible, to manipulate the black people, the African people, your knowledge of the gospel will allow you to find texts ordering. Your knowledge of the gospel will allow you to find texts ordering and encouraging your fellows to love poverty. So African people want to live poorly. They're gonna want to be poor. They're gonna be comfortable being poor with the wants of getting rich, with the wants of not being rich. Sometimes I have to think about myself sometimes, because sometimes I say the same thing. I'll be like, man, I don't care about money. But you're not supposed to generally, though, because it's a material thing. You know, you could use it for your advantage, but it's a material thing. All right, let's keep going. So you're supposed to he said, use the gospel to allow you to find text order and encourage your fellow followers to love poverty. So you want to teach Africans to love poverty. And he gave examples. Like, happier are the poor because they will inherit the heavens. That's a quote in the Bible. I don't remember exactly where the quote is, but let me see. I'm going to try and see if I can pull this up real quick, because I need you guys to see I'm not making this thing up. How they literally did use the Bible to let's see, John. Let me see. One second. As you can see, you know, happy are the poor because they will inherit the heavens. Matthew 5, blessed are the meeks. Meeks also mean somebody who is patient, right? Based on the Bible dictionary, right? I'm gonna add. Let me add this right here. Yeah. So meek is described as someone who knows patience, restraint, or when used negatively, it means overly submissive, right? So you ain't gonna know heaven until you ain't gonna know. You're gonna be happier to be poor unless you go to heaven, right? Because that's what they use based in the Bible perspective. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the heavens. And it's very difficult for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. Basically, you you have to detach from them and make them disrespect everything which give courage of affront us, for them to affront us, right? So affront basically, um, they're just saying for them to stand up and speak out and go back against them for the things that they're doing. Basically standing up for themselves, you know. And but let's fixate ourselves on where you say, as we already know, it says difficult for the rich to enter the kingdom of God, that's also a biblical quote. You have to detach from them and make them disrespect everything which gives courage to affront us. So they want them to forget their understanding, forget their knowledge of understanding, and go into this savage mentality as if they'd been dumbed down. That also opened up the door to where, when they said the Africans couldn't read and write, they wasn't allowed to learn how to read and write. It's not that they didn't know how to read and write, because they could have read and write in their own language. The issue was they didn't know when the white people came, when the colonizers came over and started doing what they was doing, evangelizing them. They limit them, or they stop them from educating themselves, and they reverse the education for them not to become more understanding of the world, but to become less understanding compared to who the people who was controlling them, and they teach them the opposite so they could keep them in control. Right? They're never gonna know anything better. So that falls under even where present today, where they will discriminate and say certain races have a smarter understanding than African people or black people, right? They made the African people this way. Now and then past times, and even present today, they would say Chinese, Indians, even white people are smarter than African people or black people in general. That's what they do. All right. So let's go forward. And I remember the word affront is just saying that they don't want them to stand up. They don't want them to get the courage to challenge their situation, start speaking out and doing different things like that. Okay, moving on. Make reference to their mystic system and their war fetish. That also means there was warriors, right? Mystic systems and their war fetish. So that means they have a warrior mentality. Fetish is also saying like this is something that they do every day. This is like a normal way of becoming a man, becoming, fighters to protect your land, right? And it's not that there was like kill, they just want to kill somebody every day. It was just something that they practice. Warfare protection. Ain't no different from when Belgium have an army, and they create an army to protect their nation. They create warriors. Same shit, right? So the people in Africa, when the colonizer came, they had warriors. They had people that lived normal civilization life, but they also had warriors. They had armies. But because of their kind heart and they being so damn nice and shit, they allow another group of people to come in and manipulate them to believe that being a warrior is the worst thing to do. Don't fight against. You can fight against yourselves, but you can't fight against the people who are suppressing you. That's bullshit. Which they pretend not to want to abandon. He said they pretend not to want to abandon. I don't understand how you could pretend to not want to abandon something when you were the one trying to force them to abandon it. They pretend to not to want to abandon. I mean, who would want to abandon their culture? It's again force, using religion to force them to be domestic people, to not give them no self understanding, no self awareness, no self protection. Moving on, and you must do everything in your power to make it disappear. And as like I said, he's using power. He's straight to the point. I like that too, because then you don't have to really try to break down too much of his stuff. But he's telling you exactly how he feel about the people in Africa. Tell you how to treat them. The whole diaspora of Africa was being annihilated by these people. They didn't see them as human beings. They see them as animals, like they could use them to do what they want. They was too kind, and then he took their kindness and wrap it up in a bag and tie it with a bow on top of it. And they laughed and drink and have a good time while they're pillaging everybody in Africa. Your action will be directed essentially to younger ones, for they won't revolt when they recommend of the priest. When they recommend of the priest is contradictory of their parents' teachings. So basically, as we know, even today, what they did to the natives as well. They basically wipe off all the. If you want to indoctrinate anybody, if you want to basically take anybody away from their heritage or their culture or their understanding of life, to kill their heritage, to kill their culture norm, to kill it, literally, you gotta eliminate the elders. The elders from the parents, I would say from maybe 15, the age of 15, maybe 20, maybe, I don't know, but I'm assuming by the age of 15, anything older than the age of 15 or 16, you wipe it out, get rid of it, destroy it. And then you take their children and rebirth children, and you teach their children what you teach those teenagers at that moment in time about the whole gospels and all that different stuff. And this is why people today, parents, grandmoms, believe in this stuff today because they killed off the parents, right? They kill off the great-grands, the elders, and they focus on their children because they're putting information in the children's head. And those children now revert against their parents because what they're teaching them, they feel like it's much safer. And then again, sometimes when you fear as a child, you kind of go with what you fear the most. You fall in line. Even if they treat you just as equal as your parents, you're still going to fall in line. But imagine the parents are gone, right? They're traumatized. The fear is there, right? The children is now going to just fall in line. Yeah, they might have some remorse or some animosity or whatever, but at the end of the day, they know this is all they know. They learn to obey and respect the people who put the fear in them. Because then the fear would reject you from wanting to operate, we want you to counteract. Right? That's why they focus on the children. You focus on the children, you're gonna kill the parents' teaching. And they're going to more revert to the priest because they look at the priest. Like if you look at it today, when people have good things happen in their life today, they praise God versus, the things that the person who helped them get what they get. if, say, somebody was to say, like, yo, I'm going to hook you up with a job, right? The person went in, they talked to whoever they got to talk to, they get you the job. The person who they got, person who they helped get the job, gonna say, thank God. God gonna bless you. They're giving the praises from God to you or to themselves instead of saying, you gave me something. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have this job. God didn't do anything. You asked somebody to help you get something, and they helped you, and you got it. You're supposed to give thanks to that person, not to a God. Not no Bible God, at least. No God, period, because you don't know any other God, really and truly, but the person who helped you out. All right, moving on. The children have to learn to obey what the missionary recommends. Who is the father of their soul? That's important right here. The children have to learn to obey what the missionary recommends. Who is the father of their soul? Let me read that one more time. The children have to learn to obey what their missionary recommends. Who is the father of their soul? He used the word father. Which represents father as in the term of, your caretaker. The person who basically, the person who is your God, basically. The one who raised you, the one who made you. Father is also known as God. Father God. There was the word father was represent, and the fact that they put the word soul there, it's a representation of the missionaries is their gods. The colonizers should be formulated as their God, should be placed in the position as their mothers and fathers that they see every day. Well, they're probably dead by now because they're going to kill them. But once they start raising the children, the people who's now controlling them, the people who's they're now working for, slaving for, they see them as their gods. That's why he said, who is the father of their soul? The children have to learn to obey the missionaries, the colonizers. He's compatriot of King Leopold. As their father of their souls. Their life is to the missionaries. Their life belongs to the colonizers. Their life is pretty much known as they're owned by the colonizers. You must sincerely insist on their total submission and obedience. Avoid developing the spirit in the school. Teach the students to read and not to reason. Only to obey. They're not supposed to learn how to read. They're not supposed to be able to talk back, whether it's wrong or right. And that's the same thing they say about the Bible. You don't question the Bible. You don't ask shit about the Bible. You don't say nothing about it. You just listen to it. And the people who actually, the ones who are distributing the Bible, or the ones who are actually narrating the Bible, who are breaking it down, the ones who teaching it to you, is your colonizers, the priests. The priest is God. the dear portrait are though are some of the principles that you must apply. You will find many other books which will be given to you at the end of the conference. Evangelize the niggers so that they stay forever in submission of the white colonizers. I mean, you can't say no more. Evangelize the niggers so that they stay forever in submission to the white colonizers, and this is what we're living by today. We're living under submission of the white colonizers. Whether we like it or not, we was raised, every single black person on this planet, and still are today, are raised to be worshiping or to be honored by white people. He used the word white colonizers, which is white people run the world today. Ain't no different. If some of these white people change, revert from that type of mentality and that type of behavior, I would say yes. But nevertheless, they're still benefiting from it because the society, the lands, the government system protects their own. Whether they like it or not, it protects their own. And we need to wake up from this shit. We need to get out of this mentality as if they are the superiors, as if we don't have a life of our own. We have a life of our own. And if we lost it, it was taken away from us, it was destroyed, we have to now rebuild it. This shit is evangelize the niggas so that they stay forever, keyword forever, in submission to the white colonizers. It's funny that they use the word forever because right now we can't even get all black women to submit to our men. And they constantly put these agendas out here to distract they gotta destroy the black homes, because that's what we're struggling for in 2021 at this point. We're struggling with that type of narrative because in a home you could build superiority. In a home you could build, a civilization out of a home. You could build warriors. But in order for that to not to happen, you gotta destroy the black family. You gotta turn the women against the men. And women taking the bait, and they're not realizing they're doing this. They don't realize they're taking the bait. And I have to say this one more time. Evangelize the niggas so they stay forever in submission to the white colonizers. We are forever. At this point in time, we're still forever struggling to get away from this mentality. A very small number of us waking up on this. But for all the man. Alright, let's keep going. Let's finish this up. So they never revolt against the restraint. They are ongoing. They are undoing. They are ongoing. We see it every day. We see it every day. Basically, put this in the head. Say it every day. As children, you teach them something from a child, and you repeat it every day. It becomes a routine. It becomes a routine. It becomes a routine. It becomes a routine. And this is all they're gonna know. When they become an adult, that's all they're gonna know. Happy are those weeping because the kingdom of God is for them. Yeah, another quote from the Bible. Happy are those weeping, because the kingdom of God is for them. That's another quote from the Bible. That's another quote from the Bible. So I had to add this comment in there. Matthew 5:10. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of the righteousness, for there is the kingdom of heaven. This shit is crazy. You know, when I gotta there's so many analyzation or so many comparison I can literally use from this letter, and this is just the first part of the letter. This is just the first part, and you could anybody can search this. All you have to type in King Leopold II letter to King Leopold, the letter from King Leopold II of Belgium to the colonizers, 1983. It's gonna show up. Just type this in. It's gonna show up. So you know that's the reference as a source to that, right? It's three letters, 3 pages. I would say 3 pages, and I'm gonna do each page separately because each page requires a breakdown. And I'm gonna end it here, and then we're gonna focus on until I come up for the next lesson with page 2.